Greetings, YouTube. I don't know if you are aware of this, but sometimes there are covenants, sometimes there are clauses in deeds and leases for land. I encountered one once when I was looking at a piece of property that we didn't purchase. And it was a house, it was a number of houses on a busy street. And behind them, there was kind of an alley. It wasn't an official city-run or owned alley. It was a pass-through that the people that had owned these houses originally had created so they would have access to the back of their property, because otherwise there wasn't any. And the way this was set up, there was no way that the properties in the middle of this property of this block could have had access to the property to the behind their houses. The ones on the ends, of course, could have. So they made a pass through, and they all agreed that this pass through would remain open for everyone's use for as in perpetuity. But apparently, someone in the next property next door purchased it and promptly blocked it off, and then got sued because they violated this agreement. Because you can't block it off. That has to be left. That has to remain open for everyone in this one little block section to have access to the property behind their homes. They were very upset. They were very entitled folks, and I gotta tell you that in retrospect, I'm really glad I don't have them as neighbors. I live in a corner, so I only have people on two sides. I like that. But sometimes the covenants are much worse. Well, you see, a woman was doing some research about whether or not it was allowed for folks to have backyard chickens. You can actually have chickens in my city, but you have to have a specific size of lot. And of course, nobody wants you to have roosters. But chickens are allowed if you have a specific lot. We don't. I don't have chickens, not that I necessarily want them. But in the process of researching whether chickens are allowed, the person discovered this, I quote, "What Selders found was a racially restrictive covenant in the Prairie Village Homeowners Association property records that says none of said land may be conveyed to, used, owned, or occupied by Negroes as owners or tenants." Built right in to this HOA covenant covering 1,700 homes. All right. And this kind of language exists all across America. It wasn't just washed away in the 1960s. This was allowed. This is part of the whole process known as redlining. Sometimes it was the banks, sometimes it was the government, because the government wouldn't, for example, give veterans loans if they were in certain areas because they didn't want white people and black people living next to each other. So if you were a black person trying to find a loan through the veterans program, then you're probably not going to have that ability to do, and that's not going to work for you. And of course, banks didn't want to do that because of property rights. They were afraid that having black people as neighbors was going to drive down the value of their real estate. I gotta tell you, I don't really have any black neighbors. It wasn't intent on my part, but I don't. But I don't care if I do. I don't care if I have Hispanic neighbors. I don't care if I have Asian neighbors, both of which I do have. Um, I don't. I'm not concerned about the value of my property. I'm more concerned with people's ability to live where they want to live and have safe, healthy homes. That's where my priorities lie. Not in being a racist, making sure that black people can't live in your neighborhood now and forever and ever and ever. And because Congress has never stepped up and done something about this, these are going to continue to exist. Now, they'll be pecked at over time, but it's going to take time. It'll take decades to find them all. Decades to break them apart in court. Now, Congress could do something. Congress could step up and say, okay, all those restrictions on Jewish people or black people living in neighborhoods, and the Jewish people were often excluded as well. It wasn't just the black people. And those are now illegal. You can't. They are a violation of civil liberties, civil rights. You cannot do that. But the Congress hasn't done that. And until they do, these kind of things are continue to exist. And they are proof positive that our nation was founded as a place of white supremacy and continues to be a place where white supremacy is baked into the legal system. This is why critical race theory exists, trying to show the world that the system is stacked against black people. The system, even though I had nothing to do with this. If I wanted to buy that property, I couldn't do anything about that covenant unless I took it to court. A single case at a time, over and over again. So the system was designed to harm black people and then to be as difficult as possible to change, because Congress won't step up and do the right thing. Because the people in Congress are mostly white, and the people in Congress are in charge of a white nationalist system. And they are hesitant to change it because it's the system that put them in the power. It's the system that keeps their pockets lined. And then if they know if they buck the system too much, they're not going to be in power any longer. Now, some will justify it by saying, well, if I'm not in power, I can't help make changes. It's really hard to make changes within the system when the system's designed not to be changed. It's possible. It's just difficult. And yes, I believe in our democracy. I believe in voting. I believe that we should do everything we can to work within the law, but there are times when we have to ask the lawmakers to step up to the plate and change the system itself, to make sure that everyone has the right to live where they want. Make sure everyone has the right to vote for who they wish and have that vote count. There are times when we need our lawmakers to actually do their goddamn jobs, which is the work for the American people, not for the billionaires, and not for the white nationalist system that was created in the past and is defended in the present. You see it every day. White people get away with killing black people all the time. Citizens, law enforcement, it's okay. It's okay to poison the land that indigenous folks live on, or put processing plants near black neighborhoods and then ignore the fact that cancer rates go up. It's okay to bake covenants into systems like this. And the very existence of homeowners association was an exercise in white supremacy. They were created in response to black people and Jewish people moving into the middle class and trying to buy property next to white folks. That's why the HOAs came into being. They are inherently racist and anti-Semitic. It's disgusting they're allowed to exist. And people are going to say, well, you don't want to have some neighbor with, trucks on their chalk blocks in their driveway. Okay, fine. If you want to do that, then get a citywide limitation against having X number of vehicles on your property. That seems reasonable to me. We've got 3 on my property. They all run. All right. But if you want to have something like that, or people storing toxic chemicals on their property, okay, I could see that. I could back you up on not wanting people to be able to keep, 55-gallon drums of used oil on their property. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You shouldn't be able to do that. But to keep black people and Jewish people out of your neighborhoods, no, you shouldn't be able to do that. But you can in America. It's right there in the covenants. It's literally black and white on the page, written down in a legal document. That's going to be hell to destroy and remove and move on. So even if a liberal person lives on that property and they want to sell to a black person, their HOA could say you can't. It's right there saying you can't. And then, of course, the homeowner would have to take them to court, which is an onerous amount of money to take an entire organization to court. An organization that will use the money that you have given them through your dues to the HOA to fight you, who is trying to do the right thing. Irony isn't as sweet as some people have told me. Um, so yeah, we live in a nation founded on white supremacy, on a system rife with white supremacy, designed to defend white supremacy. And it is our job as white people to do everything we can to pull that goddamn process apart. Because one guy with a pick can, in fact, carve a hole through a mountain. But 1,000 people? 1,000,000 people? Well then, that's not going to take nearly as much time now, will it? So it's our job to grab the picks and the shovels and to do the work that needs to be done to take apart the system that was created in our name.